Yo, what's up, everybody? Hey, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of KaneSaid. And y'all know my slogan, baby. The fame is free, but the grind costs. Today, I got a special guest, man. Got a special guest in the house, man. I'm so excited to hear his story. And I know it will impact you guys. Big dog, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good,
Doing good,
Thanks
man.
for
Man,
having
tell
me.
the people who you are, man.
All right, my name is Josh Sells. I am the owner-operator of the Chick-fil-A on Commerce Avenue. I've been there. February 1st will be 10 years, so just thankful for being here. Lagrange transplant, but
Yeah.
excited about being here and just kind of sharing kind of how we got here.
Man, I love it, man. So for everybody who don't know, you know what I'm saying, LaGrange is small town, lots of love here in LaGrange, man. So, you know what I mean, to have my boy Josh here, man, it's a real good situation. So, big dog, man, I
Yeah.
got to hear this story, man. I want to hear, you know what I'm saying, more about you.
Okay.
You know, more about your journey, man. So,
Yeah.
take off, man. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
About you, man.
Good. So I was born in Riverdale, Georgia, so right up the
Okay.
road, not too far.
Okay.
Grew up there. Yeah, I can't tell my story without people understanding kind of what happened to me when I was 12 years old.
Give it to me, man.
All right, so at 12 years old, found out that my dad had cancer.
Wow.
And he went through a lot of things for 2 years. We were in and out of the hospital.
Okay.
Really kind of shaped who I was because, you know, I watched the strongest man that I knew, my Superman, falter. And he fought it hard. So, I mean, I saw strength even in that.
Right.
But when I was 14, we lost him.
Wow.
So, and
Wow.
that
Sorry
was,
to hear that. Yeah.
that was, I mean, that's a defining moment. Every person's story has that defining moment.
Yeah.
That was my defining moment because it was the man that I looked up to, the man that I thought couldn't
Do wrong.
do wrong.
Yeah.
He was gone.
Wow.
And, you know, some people grow up without dads. I got to watch one for the first 14 years of my life.
Wow.
And saw strength in that. But as men, it hurts us to see that. I mean, it hurts us because, you know, the biggest thing that I believe the biggest thing that a man wants in his life is that approval from his father.
Man, you already know.
And so,
Yes.
you know, we want to hear you're a man, you've done well from our dad. And so I walked through those formative years of my life without that.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that was hard. It was real hard. So those high school years, I became very depressed and I had an injury to my right leg and actually had to give up most sports. I played baseball and football.
Okay.
Had surgery on it, fractured my leg multiple times. And so had to give away from sports.
Man.
Most people, when they see me, they're like, "Oh, what position do you
Right,
play in,
right,
in football?"
right.
I was like, "I would love to tell you that I, you know, got to play college football, got to do all that. I didn't get to play much high school football because of the injury. Had to kind of give it up and walk away from that. So
Wow.
lost that male influence, lost the thing that I kind of identified as. So, you know, I did what a lot of people do and went down some wrong paths.
Okay.
And in my high school years, my sophomore, junior year, I got into drugs pretty heavily,
Okay.
drinking pretty heavily.
Yeah.
Actually,
Now, do you think that came from the stuff you had to battle?
yeah, it's the stuff I had
got
to
you.
battle. I mean, it was just, I was looking for something to kind of numb the pain,
Yeah,
honestly. I
yeah.
didn't want to deal with it. I
Right.
didn't want to deal with,
Right.
I had no idea what was next.
Wow.
My mom was also going through some health issues, and she was battling some things. And so I actually kind of started dealing drugs,
Okay.
started getting into theft and things like that, anything to make a buck.
Yeah.
Because I thought that, you know, that would make me happy. As if
Okay.
I had money,
If you had
that
money.
would
Yeah.
make me happy. So
Yeah.
those were dark years. They were real dark years. I had no idea. Really thought in those times that maybe I just kind of wanted to end it all. I mean, honestly, it was just like I didn't see the purpose of actually being alive.
Being alive. Yeah.
Right. And so, fortunately, I had a mom that drugged me to church.
Okay. Okay,
And
yeah.
forced me to go to things.
Yeah.
I would be hungover, strung out, and just go to church. My dad was a bivocational pastor,
Okay.
so he was an associate pastor. And so I knew all the right answers at church, so they could drag me to church, and I
Yeah.
could go to Sunday school and give them all the answers, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's great, he's
Right.
great."
Right.
But I wasn't. It was a dark place. But when I was 17 years old, I just had an experience like no other. I mean, it was just like God was speaking to me that it was time to come back.
Wow.
I walked away from drugs after that. Just completely started trying to figure out where to go from there. I didn't know what the answer was.
Right,
I had no grand plan, but I knew that the road that I was walking down wasn't the right road, and it was time to switch. 2 weeks after I had that conversion, I got saved, dedicated my life to that. 2 weeks after that, they did a drug search at my school, and the drug dogs alerted them to my car.
Oh, man.
And I was like, well, there's nothing in there. I've gotten rid of all that. Well, they found, and I quote, 0.0031 grams of marijuana in the floorboard of my car.
Wow. Okay.
And I got arrested.
Okay.
And went to jail. And it was an experience. They held me in a cell for 27 hours without being able to make a phone call.
Oh,
my mom had no idea where I was because the school didn't call her to
No,
tell her
man.
that I had been arrested. So she's freaking out. My car is still at the school. She has no idea where I am, and it was
wow.
just kind of crazy.
Wow.
So came out of that. Still now we have my mom's still struggling with health issues. Now we have court fines, court fees, all this stuff that we've got to deal with. I'm on probation. I'm trying to not get expelled from school because I had drugs at school. All these things. And so we decide that the car that I'm driving, we're going to have to sell because we need that money, right?
Okay.
And so we're on the way to sell the car, and I get into a huge car accident. And the car is totaled. The guy behind me actually sees the accident. I get T-boned by a car going 50 miles an hour. It was my fault. And I'm in a little Chevy Cavalier.
Yeah.
And he calls the police and says, you need to hurry. There's no way this guy's going to walk away from this. Wow. I walked away from it with a bruised spleen. that was it. And glass cuttings
man.
from where. And I just remember talking to my youth minister at the time.
Okay.
And he told me, he was like, "Man, I don't know, but that if your story was over, it would have been over. And the fact that it's not means that you got something coming."
Now let me stop it right there.
Yeah.
I bet when I don't know if it did that aha moment.
Yeah.
God, now I bet you that was it.
Well, that really wasn't it at that
Really?
moment. Yeah, it wasn't, because he's like, you need to tell your story. You need to tell kind of where you've come from. I was not a public speaker. I had a public speaking class in high school.
Okay.
And the public speaking teacher told me to never pursue a job in public speaking.
Stop. Time out, man. Time out. She told you that?
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
What did that do for you, though?
I didn't like public speaking, so it's like, okay.
So okay, well, thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
I was like, dang.
No, but it's just, you think you identify yourself as something.
Yeah.
And then you realize that, okay, well, other people are validating that thing about me.
Okay.
And so it's just like, okay, well, I'm just not good enough. So when he starts telling me I should go tell my story, I'm for what? So he finally convinced me to share my testimony at a Bible study at a Chick-fil-A, which is interesting. It's the irony of that.
Okay.
Later in life, but I'm sharing my story to these kids, and I'm scared out of my mind. It's terrible. I know it went terribly, and people are coming up and they're giving you the hey, good job.
You did so well.
And you're like,
God used you.
Yeah. God didn't use me that morning. I don't think anybody even understood a word I said that morning because there were so many ums. They know that I said an about 1,000 times.
Right.
And so, we just really started praying about it, and we just kind of felt like God was telling me it was that my story was a gift and that I had to share it. And so finally I just said, hey, if this is really what I'm being called to, you're going to have to give me that ability because I don't have it.
Wow.
And so I actually, I got into the University of Georgia, but I didn't go because I needed to stay home with my mom. We couldn't really afford for me to be gone. I was going to have to work to go through college.
Right.
I went to Atlanta Christian College.
Okay.
And was going to go into youth ministry. And so that
Okay.
was kind of my thing in life is like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start sharing this story. I had the opportunity to start sharing my testimony. And God was faithful to actually provide me with the ability to do it.
Wow.
And I started seeing people actually getting impacted by kind of my story.
Really?
And when they heard that, like, you know, people that I knew who had seen me try to public speak before saw me public speaking then, and they're like, what's changed? And I'm like, I have no idea. So long story short, that's kind of what I was doing. I got a job in the churches, and was a youth minister and got burned. I mean, just really got burned.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard. There was people in the church, the pastors of the church were just doing things. They were doing unethical things.
I got you.
And, you know, you try to talk to people about it. And then, you know, if you go against them and say, hey, the pastor, you go to the leadership of the church and say, the pastor's doing this, it's unethical. And they're just like, you need to shut your mouth and do your job.
Go to your room.
Yeah. And it's like, no, I'm not, this is not, this is not how this works.
Yeah.
And so I just walked away from, I realized my senior year of college. My senior year of college, I've got a biblical studies degree. I realized that being in the church is not what I was like. Working in a church was not what I was being called to do. But I was an out of work youth minister, and not a lot of people were hiring.
Right.
But fortunately, that Chick-fil-A that I had my chance to give that testimony to, he brought me on. That operator brought me on, and said, you know, we want somebody who can influence some of our kids here, and we feel like you might be a good person, you know. And I didn't really want to be in the restaurant business.
Right. So in terms of bringing you on, what do you mean? Like he brought you on?
He brought me on. I waited tables to start.
Okay.
And then I went to the kitchen. I became a kitchen supervisor, and he was like, you need to pursue this operator deal. And I had a mentor at the college, at Atlanta Christian College, and I was really trying to get back into youth ministry. I was like, there's got to be better situations than this.
Yeah.
Like, but that was still my focus. I mean, my degree was there. Like, why would I have this degree and then go do something completely different?
Right.
But my mentor, my senior year, finally said, you know, after working at Chick-fil-A for about a year and a half, he was like, Josh, I'm just going to be really honest with you, man. He said, you know, the world doesn't need more pastors. The world needs more business people, lawyers and doctors who have a mindset of impacting people, of kingdom mindset, of those things. And he said, I don't understand why you're not even giving this Chick-fil-A gig an opportunity. And so I was like, okay, well, let's think about it. Well, you know, there was that talk, and then there was a girl. So there was a girl that worked there that, you know, kind of caught my eye.
Okay.
And I wasn't a big fan of her at first. She actually had worked there from when she was 15 years old. She went to Clemson and would come back on holidays and things.
Right.
When she graduated, she actually wanted to get on at the Chick-fil-A home office, and so they wanted to train her to be a manager.
Okay.
And they made me train her to be a manager because I was a manager at the time.
Okay.
But I kind of you know, fell for her.
Okay.
And she really encouraged me, you know, you should really think about this Chick-fil-A thing. And so through all that, I began to really kind of pursue it.
Okay.
And you know, it was you get out of college, you pursue it, you put your application in. We hear the numbers. The numbers are that, you know, thousands of people apply to become Chick-fil-A operators every single year.
I had no idea.
Yeah, right now, 21,000 people a year inquire about it. And they interview 500 to 1,000 people a year to do it and select about 80. And so you start hearing those numbers, and you're like, I'm like, I don't have a business degree.
Yeah.
I've never run a business. I've never done these things. So I'm like, so then it was a 4-year process.
Okay. Okay, now, so let's talk time frame.
Yeah.
Year.
Yeah.
What year did you actually start putting the application in?
Yeah, so I put in my first application in 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it was 2005. That's also the year that I got married.
Okay.
To Mandy. And
now, hold on, let me back up now.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mandy's the one that was at the
yeah.
time out. See,
Yeah.
see, big dog, you didn't say that now.
Yeah, no, I ended up
I didn't want to bring it out at first though. Okay.
Yeah, I ended up
let's talk a little turkey now, okay?
Yeah.
So, okay. So the one who caught your eye is your now wife.
She's my wife. She's been my wife for
15
years.
15 years. Now we're talking. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we got married. I actually left that Chick-fil-A that I was at and went to another Chick-fil-A right down the road. Not because of a bad thing. It was just a progression. He had an opportunity for me to learn more and progress and develop. And so went to work for him. He was actually opening, Doug Barnett in Fayetteville was actually opening a second restaurant, Stars Mill in Peachtree City.
Okay.
And so he needed a general manager for that Stars Mill location to get it grand open, to get it off the ground. And so I went into that position and served with him at Stars Mill for a year.
Okay.
All the time I was interviewing in this process. And so
so interviewing for your own store.
yes, trying to become trying to become an operator.
Yeah.
And so I think it was 2008, that I got on with the corporate office and became what they call an interim manager. And so in the interim manager road, you actually travel. And so when they have stores that aren't like the operator retired or the operator got let go for some reason whatsoever, or they're going to close down a restaurant, so they're not giving it to an operator, so they take corporate ownership of it. They send you in to run it. You're like a temporary operator who works for the corporate office.
Okay.
And so I went and traveled and did that. My wife had a job, so she couldn't travel with me. So for that year, I'm out on the road and traveling.
How was that, man, though?
It was hard, and especially after the first month, I found out she's pregnant.
Oh man! So imagine this though. Now, when you find out that she was pregnant,
now
did it mess with you? Like, man, do I need to be doing this, or do I need to go back home?
Yeah. So I mean, it's that's the hard decision, and fortunately, she worked for the Delta Credit Union.
Okay.
And at that time, they had flight privileges, so she would fly on the weekends to wherever I was to see me, and so that made it a little bit easier. But it was, there is that tension. It's like, she still gives me a hard time that I missed the entire first pregnancy.
Right.
For the most part, and so. But I was in Dothan, Alabama for a couple months. I was in Fredericksburg, Virginia, just south of Washington, D.C. for 5 months. And then I was interviewing for specific locations at that time. I got told no for 4 locations. And it was, it really starts messing with your mind because you're kind of like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And that was the question. I've seen people go through these things where they get really frustrated, they get mad, they start blaming other people. But my question was always, okay, help me understand what I wasn't doing to get selected for that. And their answer was always the same, is that I was always getting beat out. I was getting to the top 2 on all of these locations, but I was getting beat out by people who were from that area. And they're like, it's not anything you did, it was just that they were a better fit for that location. We're gonna find your location, we just haven't found it yet. And so finally we got kind of close to the due date. Chick-fil-A brought me home, and I actually went back to work for my local operator for a couple weeks. and then an opportunity to help out with a guy that I had hired at my first Chick-fil-A. He was now in the interim manager thing as well, and he was having an opportunity to run a location in Columbus.
Okay.
And he asked me to come help him until the baby was born. So it got me back home for the last month. I was able to go help out a friend, do some things. After that, Chick-fil-A gave me an assignment in Decatur. So I was able to just commute to Decatur every day, be there with a newborn. So Owen, who's now my 12-year-old, he was born, and I was able to be home every night and do that. You know, it gave me the opportunity also to meet an operator who was right outside of that location. And during that, I was interviewing. We actually got the opportunity to get selected for a restaurant in St. Petersburg, Florida. And so it was the lowest volume Chick-fil-A in the chain. It was not profitable.
Oh, man.
And I wasn't going to make any money there. And it was, you know, that opportunity was shown to me, and it's really easy to sit here and say, well, that wasn't my dream. That wasn't what I was looking for. You know, I got into this to make all this money, and do all these things, and be successful. That's not it. And fortunately, I had an opportunity to talk to someone, one of my contacts from the home office, and he said, for 4 years, you've been trying to become what? And I said, an operator. He goes, does this make you an operator? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, are you going to make that store worse for being there? And I'm like, no. He goes, then why not at least go after it? And so I went there, and I said, you know, my goal is you're supposed to be somewhere for 2 years before you try to relocate to a new location.
Okay.
So my goal was 24 months.
You wrote it down in your notebook, like
24 months.
Yeah.
I was like, we're going to be here 24 months. We're going to figure it out, and then we're going to make our next jump.
Right.
And then I also got the opportunity to talk to an experienced operator there in Decatur, Keith Shelton, who's just a phenomenal guy. Interestingly enough, Keith, when I started my interview process, he was the guy that did the initial operator interview at that time. And while I was in the interview process, he actually became an operator. So he did my first interview, and then he was an operator, and then and so, you know, I sat there and I just asked him, I said, hey, give me some advice. You know, what do you wish you knew going back? And Keith gave me some of the best advice that I've ever had in my life is that, you know, you're pursuing your career. You know, you've got your whole life to become a great Chick-fil-A operator. He said, you got one opportunity with your kids.
Man.
He said, I knew my kids all the life, but I didn't really get to know them until they were like 13 or 14. And he said, don't blow it.
Wow.
Because you can't fix that. He said, you can't fix that. You can fix your business. You can't fix that. And he said, you have a new son. Find a time of the day to just really own with him and always own it. And so from day one, I started just, bedtime was my thing because that was the time that I could commit to being there for him. And so I started reading books with him and just being there for bedtime, and, you know, have been able to do that with my kids. And it's just been, that advice was just huge for me.
But I'm going to tell you too, man, you know, and it's good you're saying that because a lot of time as business entrepreneur, I'm guilty of it. We get so caught up in the grind.
Yeah, absolutely.
We forget about that part. So,
right.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
I mean, that's, you know, even now, and I tell that to my employees a lot. I tell that to my leaders. It's like, you know, I want to run a great Chick-fil-A. I want to do these things, but you know, at the end of the day, if Chick-fil-A burns down, it is what it is. Like I can figure that out. But if I screw up my relationship with my kids,
man,
I can't fix that.
Right.
I can't fix the damage that's going to do to them. And so I have to keep those priorities straight. I have to understand that while my professional life is important and it needs my focus, it needs those things, it needs the best of me when I'm there. It will never take the spot of my role as a parent.
Man.
And so,
wow.
So yeah, that was great advice. We were in St. Petersburg. It was slow. It was awful. It was beautiful. We were at the beach, but we just didn't make any money. But fortunately, we were only there for 21 months.
Okay.
And
so you didn't make the 24.
No. We were fortunate. The opportunity to come to Lagrange came up, and just through some relationships.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm about to ask you that now. Now, what's the process of being able, like, okay, because you're in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did Lagrange pop up?
Yeah, so we as operators, we're able to see what restaurants, like if in Lagrange, the operator who was at Commerce Avenue, he was giving it up to go over to Lafayette Parkway. So Rob took that restaurant. So that restaurant at Commerce Avenue was coming available.
Okay.
And so I was able to see that, and then I just express interest, and then the interview process goes through. So you might have 5 people express interest. And it's just all about, them selecting the best fit.
Right.
And so we were fortunate enough out of, I think it was 4 people to be selected to move to Lagrange. We felt like it was close enough to family that we could kind of get back there. We had Owen, and then we had a second son on the way at that time. And parents were like, we'd love to not have you 500 miles away.
Right. Yeah.
And so Lagrange was good. I'd been to Lagrange a few times. We didn't know if we really wanted to set roots here,
right.
But we felt like it was a good move.
Okay.
And so we came here in 2011 and had our second son, Benjamin, here. And sales were not what I had hoped they would be. With the new location opening up, it was just kind of changing things. And again, we were just kind of like, I don't know, this is where we're going to be long term. But over the years, we've grown to love Lagrange, and we've fallen in love with this community. We've been extremely blessed by the customer base. Our restaurant is outperforming anything that we could have ever done. I mean, when I got here, I had 25 employees. I was telling somebody the other day on Christmas Eve, we had 28 employees working at one time. So I had more people on the clock on Christmas Eve this year than I'd had on my entire payroll when I first got here. So
man, I'm gonna be honest, man. Anytime I arrive out there, you got a line.
Oh yeah.
That's a line that wraps around by 2 or 3 times.
That's right.
But that's crazy.
So we have over 80 employees now.
Wow.
We're just extremely blessed. And for me, it's people talk about their career and their calling and those kind of things. I think when you talk to me about my business, I love to talk about Chick-fil-A because it's exciting. I love what I do. And when I was pursuing a career, I always wanted to pursue something that I wouldn't be ashamed of. And, I wanted to be able to look at my children and tell them what I did and not be ashamed of it. And so that was a big piece of it. But I think it's really important as entrepreneurs and people that are pursuing our passions to understand that we cannot identify ourselves by what we do. And it's a very important distinction that we have to make.
Okay.
Is that I do Chick-fil-A, but that is not who I am.
Okay. Okay.
And it doesn't determine my value how well that business does.
Okay.
So that was a very important for me to understand. And it's one of the biggest things that I've learned in life. And I try to walk people through, some of my leaders through a life plan process of understanding what do you really feel like you're here for? Like, what's your purpose in life? Okay. Understanding those things. And so that really boils out for me as I became more comfortable with sharing my story, those things. I have a life verse that really just kind of lays it out for me. And it's Ephesians 2:10.
Okay.
And it says, "For we are God's workmanship."
Okay.
And so being a Bible student, I learned Greek. And I know that word workmanship, while it's not a word that a lot of people use today, in the Greek, it's actually the word poemia. It's where we get our word poem from. And so when you think about that, you think about what a poem is. It's really somebody, an author sitting down and pouring themselves into something. But people don't just like you write a note, you write a text, you do these things. But a poem is something.
It's deeper.
It's deeper.
Yeah.
You've really breathed something into that, right? And so when I think about that verse says that we're God's workmanship, we're His poem, we're His masterpiece. We have the divine breathed into us. What that does for me and what it helps me understand about every single person in the world is that you are purposefully made.
Yeah. Wonderfully purposely made. Yes, sir.
You are purposely made. You're not a mistake.
Right.
You're not an accident. You're not any of those things. And so it gives you immense value. And for me, that helps me understand that, like, I have value, you have value. Anyone who comes into my drive-thru, whether they're, like whatever creed, race, religion, anything that they have, political party, even in this world, they have immense value, not because of those labels that we like to put on them, but because they were divinely and purposely made. And that's where their value lies. And so understanding that helps me understand why I want to run a good chicken restaurant.
Okay.
Is because it meets a need for our community of creating jobs.
Right.
It meets a need for being able to provide hospitality. We're in a world where hospitality is something that's going away. I mean, it's like we're putting kiosks up in restaurants where you don't even have
no more. Like, I understand what's going on, but the contact is leaving.
But I mean, it's like having meetings and going to churches. I mean, it's all becoming digital. It's all becoming where that hospitality, which that word is, it's the love of strangers. It's the it's being able to do that. It's something that I hope we never lose, because it's so important. And so if we understand the value in people, then we can understand why we need to make sure our drive-thru moves fast. We can understand why it's important that our sales grow, because if my sales grow, it's not about me putting more money in my pocket. That might happen. Right. I mean, that may happen, but it's creating more jobs. It's creating more opportunities. We've had people from our restaurant go into the military. We've had people in our restaurant go into the medical field. We've had people in our restaurant start their own businesses. We've had people come out of our restaurant. We have a couple that I've hired over the years that have become Chick-fil-A operators. They're in the process of trying to become Chick-fil-A operators. We have people that have gone on to work at the home office. I look at that as that's what my calling is to help people understand that you were purposely made. But the second part of that verse says that we were created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which He set apart for us since the beginning of the world, which means that we have a purpose. And we each have a purpose. And separating that from what we do is important, because I may sell chicken, but that's not like
who you are.
Honestly, Kane, like I don't really like if I had to choose it, the restaurant business probably wouldn't be what I did.
Okay.
But the platform and the opportunity that being in business with a company like Chick-fil-A gives me is why I do it.
I'm with you.
Is because what it allows me to accomplish, it helps me accomplish what I feel like is my purpose.
Right.
And I think that's important. I think it's really important that you define that entrepreneurs define that. They don't identify themselves by what they do, but they identify themselves by what their purpose is. And they make sure that they understand that your purpose can be different from your occupation.
Wow. Dang, that's good.
And you should find an occupation that allows you to accomplish your purpose. Wow. And I think that when people find that and they understand that they understand, you talk about the grind, you understand that when you're like we were chatting about this earlier about doing CrossFit and working out. It's like, if I don't have a reason for doing it, like laying on the floor and killing myself, like doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But if I have a purpose behind it, that grind is worth it.
Then it makes sense.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, it's even like with kids, like, you know, I'm going through it right now with Owen. You know, we're hitting those preteen age, and it's just hard. Like the communication is like,
it's just different.
I'm like, what has happened to you? Like,
right.
But I have to keep in mind, what is my purpose? Like, my purpose for him is to shepherd him well.
Wow.
It's not to make him compliant now.
Right.
It's not to make him respectful now. Like, I might have to go through some really bad years to get him to where we're hoping to get him, where hopefully he begins to make the right decisions. I had to go through some really bad years to get to where I am.
Right.
And so if I don't have that end in mind, that purpose of what I'm trying to accomplish, that doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not willing to go through it. And so for me, that's my passion, is trying to help people understand, number one, that they have value, they have immense value, because they were created on purpose. They're not an accident. But number two, helping them discover what their purpose, and helping them understand that, like, not everybody's called to be missionaries somewhere else and do all this stuff. And so maybe you have to do an occupation that doesn't look like you thought it was going to look. But if it allows you to do what your purpose is, you're going to find much more joy, even in that grind, even in those tough times, than you would sitting around doing nothing. Right. We're not meant to sit around and do nothing. No. We're meant to work. We're meant to, you know, find fulfillment in doing something meaningful. Yes. And whether that's taking an order on an iPad at Chick-fil-A, or that's answering a phone, or, you know, maybe, you know, some people's purpose is to bring joy to people's lives. And so maybe you could be a receptionist and you do that and you understand that that's what you do. And it's like, there's value in that job, because you're fulfilling your purpose. I mean, you know, my wife is an accountant for the Delta Credit Union. She works remotely. And people laugh all the time because, like, she doesn't really need to work. But, I mean, she works hard. Right. And her purpose in life is to serve people, and she finds her joy in just serving others. And she does it more. She's willing to do it more than anyone I've ever seen. She doesn't like to be front of the house. Like, she doesn't want people to, you know, put her forward. She just wants to love on people. And so her job at the credit union, she's able to do work that helps other people, that does those things. And so she finds immense fulfillment in that. And we're just like, you work too hard. Like, this is too much. But she's like, but I love it.
I'm loving it.
I love it. And it's not that I have to do that. Right. And so other people would look at that and say, that's the worst thing in the pot. But her mindset is so different than so many other people's. And that's what I try to tell people is, like, wherever you are, figure out if you can fulfill your purpose where you are. And then maybe you move on to something else. You go to a next step that further allows you, but understand it's the process of that. You don't just look at other people and think that, like, I want to be that. Right. I want to be that. Right. I want to be that.
Find your process.
Right. Find your process. Find what that looks like for you. It's going to look different. And just understand that. I mean, I've been around people, you know, I've had the opportunity to be around people that the world deems successful. And they have crappy lives. They have crappy marriages.
Something missing.
And that's what it is that they are identifying themselves by their success. They're identifying themselves by what they do. They're not focused on their purpose. Wow. And trying to live in that purpose and then do what they do in that purpose. And so I don't care how much money I make. If my marriage is crappy,
you still lose.
I lose. Right. Like, at the end of my life, I'm not going to be like, well, my kids are terrible. Like, everything's kind of falling apart. Well, but I had a good business.
Got a good business. Yeah.
No. I would rather be poor and have a strong family and have set them up for success,
Mm-hmm.
and known, put them in a place where that they could go live out their purpose, than be rich and have everything falling apart.
So let me ask you this, man. I know you were talking about hospitality earlier. Man, where did that concept come from in Chick-fil-A? I'm gonna be honest with you. When I go through the drive-through and get a chicken sandwich meal, I can tell it's so good. I just want to get back in line again. Like, where did that concept come from?
It all comes from our founder, Truett.
Okay.
I mean, it is him. It was his heart. When we have new hires, we do an orientation, and I like to tell Truett's story. And Truett had a paper route early on, and even then he learned that different people liked their papers put in different places when he would deliver it. And so he would learn how to take care of people differently and do those things. And, he just, he lived that out in the way that he ran the business and how he grew the business. His life verse was a good name is to be chosen over great riches.
Yeah, but.
And so he, that was his thing, was that, over money, over all those things, we're going to try to take care of people.
Right.
And
right.
He would all, and
I see that too.
Yeah, he would also say, we are in the people business. We just happen to sell chicken.
Wow.
And so his leadership over the years, just unbelievable, and just set the stage for what Chick-fil-A has been able to accomplish. And just keeping the main thing.
Yeah.
And not getting focused on, just chasing money. I mean, he always said, we're not trying to be another McDonald's. We're not trying to do those things. We're going to run our race. We're going to do our thing. And through that, you've been able to see, as long as we focus on people, we are able to pivot when the world is falling apart. I mean, during this last year, I mean, it's like, the world is trying to figure out how to make it. And we're over here, we're like, okay, so here, if we can just focus on this and keep these people safe and do these things, and we've been able to succeed through uncertain times.
So in terms of hiring, right? I mean, come on, I go to you guys, restaurant. I see, a lot of teenagers in there.
Mm-hmm.
What's the, I don't know if it is or not. What's the science behind having?
I wish it was a science.
There's no science behind it. No, I'm saying this, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hear what you said earlier.
Yeah.
I'm like, hold up.
Yeah.
I get it. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's.
Yeah, no, it's there's not a science behind it. I mean, it's, interviewing is, I always like to say, interviews like a billboard going down the road. You got 15 seconds to decide if you're going to buy something off of a billboard, but you have no idea. It doesn't tell you really enough, because until you get somebody in the door and actually working at the pace that we work at and doing the things over, it's like, you don't really know. You really don't know. But one of the things that we're really trying to define right now is we have 5 core values at Chick-fil-A on Commerce Avenue, and it's the acronym is that our team has got to have heart. And so the number one thing is hustle. Is that you got to move like it matters. People have got to see that hustle. Effort is meaning that, why not your best? Like, I define that differently as you can move really fast and do the wrong thing.
Do the wrong thing, yeah.
But effort is about doing the right thing. And so they got to have effort. They got to have attention to detail. The small things make the big things happen.
Yeah.
They got to be ready to serve. Because, I always tell them, I was like, I sign your paycheck, but the customer funds it. Wow. And so you got to be ready. I mean, I don't care if they pull in at 9:59. I mean, it's hard. It's hard because, it's 9:59. We're about to close. They're in mindset. They're like, I'm going to get out of here as fast as I can. They got to go study. They got to do these things. They pull on the lot, and it's like, oh. But it's like, just remember, they still fund your check. You still got to put it on.
Yeah.
And so you got to be ready to serve. And then the last thing is teamwork. When you have 20 people on the clock at one time, it doesn't matter how well you take the order. If the other people don't do their job well, it doesn't work. And so I try to say we hire for heart.
Okay.
We hire for those core values. We try to search that out in our interview questions, see if we can figure out. I mean, I wish there were a sign. I wish there was a test that we can just
Right.
like poke them. It's like,
Right.
yeah, they got it.
Nah, because see, I was saying this, man, you know, just to hear how you're saying, and maybe I just thought so deep into it, but to hear you saying how, you know what I'm saying, you want people to find their purpose.
Yeah.
And having 16, 17-year-old, and, you know, 18-year-old kids in there, that's a great age for them to start recognizing that.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So I thought maybe that was part of the setup, but I mean, if it ain't, it still is.
I mean, it's, you know, at the end of the day, it's, you know, you can talk about purpose, you can talk about that stuff, and that's, you know, that's going to get some people excited. But at the end of the day, I mean, they still got to do the work. So it's, you know, we hope that journey starts to happen for them.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, it's, we try to live it out. You can talk about purpose, you can talk about your mission statements, you can talk about that. But at the end of the day, the boots on the ground, you know, it's one of the things we're trying to figure out is that the pace of the work that we do and the work that we do is hard. And so we're trying to figure out how to make it better and try to do the things. But we hire for heart, and then we train their head, what they need to know, train their feet where they need to be, and their hands what they need to do. And so, you know, we're just, and it's getting harder. I mean, it's getting harder. It's just, we used to be able to be really personal, but when we had 25 people, you know, you get a new hire in, everybody can focus on it.
Right.
When you have 80 people, it's harder to do that. And so, you know, one thing that Truett always challenges us to do is to be married to the principles.
Okay.
But only,
I like that.
but only date the methods. Meaning that, like, what you did back then might not work now. And so many times we get married to the methods of what we do, but the principle is what's more important. And I think that's, you know, for everybody in life, I think that's the important thing, is that you need to live by principles, but the way you do it, how you carry out those principles, they're going to change.
They change,
They're going to change. I mean, like, you know, what I did, you know, I used to be in the restaurant a lot, and we'd be there almost every night and see everybody. I have 3 kids now, and like they're playing sports. It's like, I'm not going to be able to be here as much, like, because I'm going to be at those games, I'm going to be at those things. And so my methods of that, I still want people to feel valued, but the way I do it may look differently now than the way it looked.
So, okay, now was that transition hard for you to not be there, you know, every day, as far as like to make sure, you know, it runs well?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, it is, you know, and I think there's a great book out there for entrepreneurs. It's called The E-Myth.
The E-Myth.
And it's talking about that. It's talking about why most businesses don't get to make that jump.
Right.
Because at some point, at first, the entrepreneur is the product.
Okay.
Right? It's his specialist. He's the specialist. If you've got an electrical company, you're the electrician that goes in and does all the work. And that's why people become so loyal to you, because you do such great work. But at some point, the business grows so much that you can't do it all.
Wow.
And what happens so often is that entrepreneur begins to believe, I got to work harder. I got to do this. But what they really need to be able to do is scale. They need to be able to train others to do the things. And ultimately, one of the questions that the author asks is if you were to step off of a curb and get hit by a bus, would your business be able to continue? And if you're not thinking about how to make sure that if you were taken out of the equation, your business couldn't continue, then you're probably not running it right to be able to grow and to be able to have maximum impact and influence and those kind of things. And I think that that's where a lot of entrepreneurs fail, is that they have this complex that if they're not involved, it's going to fall apart. But the truth of the matter is, the bigger it gets, what I understand is there's only a few things that only I can do in the business.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So like my top leaders, I have, 5 people that are director level. They think long term with me. They help me, think strategy and not just what's going on. Like my drive-thru's wrapped right now, but basically hiring strategy and all these things. I'm the only person that can really pour into them. Right? Okay. And if I do that well, they can pour into a few other people.
Yes.
But if I don't focus on them, then their leadership is not going to be maximized, which is ultimately going to affect the next level down, which is ultimately going to affect the team members' experience. And so it's hard for me to understand that, like, putting food in a bag, while it's important and somebody needs to be focused on it, there's other things that if I don't do them, they're not going to get done. Yeah. So if I don't say, hey, I'm just going to allow someone else to do this, and hopefully we're going to train them and do well on that. And yes, there is going to be drop off, right? But that's part of the experience, right? I didn't become good at X by just like day one. Yeah. It took that time. And if somebody hadn't allowed me to struggle through it,
and then you wouldn't have the opportunity.
You never had the opportunity to do it, right? And so it's understanding that giving someone else is not about getting rid of things that I don't want to do necessarily. It's about allowing me to say yes to doing things that makes it special. It allows me to do certain things that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. I'm not good at it. Like this has been a hard transformation for me to make over the years. And, it's hard, especially when performance dips and you're like, well, I just got to take back over.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my God. I ain't gonna lie, man. You're like schooling me right now because here, that's what I battle with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The same type
absolutely.
Thing. Man.
But it's understanding that I'm not the product.
Okay.
Right? And I don't even need to be the center of the attention.
Right.
But there are things that, again, in my purpose that I can do in my business that only I can do. And if I focus 80% of my time on things that only I can do, that helps everyone else do what they need to do.
Wow.
And it's there's a lot of smarter people that I've learned from over the years. I read, I listen to podcasts and things like that because they've just gone through experiences that I haven't.
Yeah.
And they're smarter at this stuff than I am. And, the biggest thing is understanding that, the business is always going to have things that are needs.
Okay.
My job as the top leader is not to meet all of those needs, but to build an organization that makes sure that those needs are met.
Man.
And sometimes I need people to tell me what those needs are.
Yeah.
Because it's gotten so big that I miss it.
You miss it.
The stuff that I'm focused on, I'm over here and I'm like, this is what we need to do. I need people on my team who are going, hey, dingus,
let's get it done.
This is really your problem,
right.
not that.
Right.
I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is the problem,
Okay, so let me ask you this though. So how long did it take, man, for you start, I guess, trusting other people's words or other people's advice?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like for example, your 5 team members that you pour into, and I'm sure they give you information too. How long did it take for you to say, okay, let me step back and just hear what they're saying?
Still daily.
Right?
I mean, it's a process. Our Truett's, our founder's son, Dan Cathy, he's now the CEO. He wears his name badge and has a tag on it that we give all our employees when they first start, and it says "in training." And I think for me, it's I try to adopt the John Wooden philosophy of it's what you learn after you know everything that matters. And I think every day I learn something. I'm terrible at it. I mean, it's like we get a customer complaint and I'm like, oh Lord, I got to start, I just I need to be there and I need to do this and I need to do this. And it's like, no, that's not it. That's not it. Because I don't expect any of my leaders to be there 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. Like, I know that they have families. They need to rest. They need to do those things. And so if I'm going to tell them that they need rest, they need to be with their families, then I have to model that myself.
Same exact thing.
And so I can't ever believe that it's all about me. And so it's a daily surrender. And it's a daily understanding of, again, what's my purpose? My purpose is I want to build an organization that launches leaders. I want to show people that they have a purpose. I want to show people that they are valuable. And for me to do that, I can't say that I'm more valuable than everybody else. If everyone has equal value in my organization, I can't say I'm more important.
I like that.
And so if I ever begin to take control back, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is I'm more valuable than you. And so it's a daily check for me, and it's a daily learning process. I'm still not good at it. I'm still trying to learn from others. I'm actually next week going to spend some time with an operator who's been doing it longer, and he's got multiple restaurants. And I texted him up and was like, hey, I just want to come spend a day with you.
Yeah.
I just want to come learn from you and just ask you some questions because I want to create more opportunities.
Right.
I want to see more people realize their purpose. And I feel like the better we get, the more that'll happen.
The more that thing will happen. But man, let me tell you something. It seems like to me that you really, really do a lot of self-examination.
Oh, I'm my own biggest critic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, the war in my head is the hardest one I fight daily.
But you know what though? A lot of people shy away from that.
Right.
You know what I mean? For the simple fact of fearing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
Gosh, man.
Well, but it's easy when you fight that war to then question your own value.
Right.
It's like, oh, I'm not good enough to do this.
Right.
Instead of having to do the work of introspection and saying, okay, if I'm failing somewhere, well, just like that youth minister told me, if your story was over, it would be over. But as long as I'm still here and I have the opportunity to do something, I can change it. I can accept where I am and identify where I am and say, okay, this is where I am. Like, that's my reality. Now, what am I going to do about it?
That's classic, man. That's man, I'm going to be honest, though. You know what I'm saying? I had no idea about this. Like you know, I mean, I had no idea. Okay, so for me, you know what I'm saying, the biggest struggle I have is, just like you said a while ago, you know, so when you've been an entrepreneur, you know what I'm saying, at first it's all about, you know what I'm saying, you giving out a product.
Right.
But as time go on, you want to, you know what I'm saying, get away. I ain't gonna lie, man. I get whooped every night from my wife. Like, where you at? I'm like, babe, I gotta be at the gym. In the gym.
Right.
So that's tough for me, man, because I haven't let go yet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, but
and it's not going to look the same, and there's differing levels of it, and there's commitments, and we all understand that. But it is that process of what are you really trying to accomplish? Like making sure that that's clearly defined, and making sure that like what you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis is helping you accomplish that.
Right.
I mean, it's the whirlwind of life is never going to stop. And so you've got to be able to step outside of it for a minute and look at the big picture. Look at the, as someone once said, is like, if you were to die today, Kane, what would somebody say at your eulogy right now? Okay, so you know that. You know what they would say about you.
Right.
If you were to die 30 years from now, what do you want them to say?
That's about your legacy.
The difference between those two things is what you need to do in the next 30 years.
Classic.
And so if you don't start doing something today, then 30 years from now, they're going to say the same thing that they said today.
Yep.
But that difference, whatever that difference is what you've got to start doing now.
Yep.
And so for me, it was like, those were the things, 6 years ago, I started on a fitness journey. I was 280 pounds, about to go on high blood pressure medication, all these things. And it was really a wake-up call for me to say, I don't want to be dead when my boys graduate high school, like my dad was. I want to be there for their wedding. I want to be there for those things.
Right.
So I've got to change something. And so that's why I started waking up at 5 a.m. and working out. People ask me all the time, they're like, how do you do that? I couldn't do that. I'm like, I wasn't a morning person. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, but that was
Yeah.
the only time that I could commit to doing it. And so I started doing it. And it got a little bit easier. And I mean, every day that alarm goes off. I mean, if you look at my phone, I have 6 alarms that go off at 4:10, 4:20.
Right.
Most of the time, I get up before the first one now because I've been doing it for so long. It's a habit. It's just automatic.
Right.
But I give myself those things because I know in the long run, no matter how hard it is to wake up at 4 o'clock, I want to see their graduation. And so when I'm laying on the floor at the end of a CrossFit workout, like it's not because of my time. It's not because of how much weight I lifted. It's because I want to see my kids graduate. I want to see them get married. I want to see those things. And so that's why I dropped 40 pounds.
Yeah.
It was not because I wanted to look good in a bathing suit. It wasn't because I wanted to be able to lift more weight. It's because I wanted that.
You wanted that part, yeah.
Yeah, and if we don't take a step back every once in a while and say, is what I'm doing helping me get to where I want to go? That it's just we're too close to it sometimes.
Yeah. Man, you know what though? Man, you brought a whole different spin to entrepreneurship because I'm gonna tell you, a lot of times, man, you watch social media, man, you watch when they always talk about go, and you produce. Don't get me wrong, you still gotta go.
Oh, you gotta go.
You gotta go.
Right.
But they forget and leave out, and I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
Leave out, go, but you better balance.
Yeah.
You better balance, and
I think balance is not. I always tell people balance is a lie.
Okay, talk to me. Give it to me.
Balance is a lie. I think life is full of tension. And tension isn't a bad thing. It's just something to be managed.
Wow.
And so sometimes you're going to get pulled in this direction a little further, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes your business is going to need you more. And so my wife knows that. Sometimes there's seasons of my life where my business is going to need more.
Right.
Need me more. And I'm going to be focused on it. You know, beginning of the pandemic, it was
something.
My attention almost 20 hours a day was on how do we survive this?
Right.
How do we get through this? How do we do these things?
Right.
Your kid gets sick, something happens, something happens with your family, you're going to get pulled in this direction more. And it's a tension. It's a tension. It's not, this is not going to stop pulling. But sometimes I just have to manage it and say, that pull's going to be there, but my attention's got to go here. And so when people talk about balance, I'm like, there's no such thing as balance in life.
I never seen it that way before.
There's no such thing. And I think that's where people beat themselves up because they're like trying to achieve this thing that can't be achieved. It's never going to be achieved. But if you understand that there's always going to be this pull, and every moment of the day you have to say, okay, where can I put my focus now?
Right.
And sometimes I'm going to have to be unbalanced this way. Sometimes I'm going to have to be unbalanced this way. But the important thing is that I'm making the decision. I'm managing the tension. I'm not letting it manage me.
Wow. So let's talk about this, big guy. Let's talk about, earlier you talked about, self-help podcasts, self-help books. Now, how often do you do that type of stuff? Yeah,
so I listen to a podcast. I get up 4:10 every morning, drive to CrossFit, 10-minute thing. Yeah. I'm usually listening to something while I'm doing that in the morning. I help get the kids to school, so they're out of the door by 7:40. Usually don't go to work until around 8:30, so I have about 50 minutes where I'll read or do something that just gets my thought process going. And it's not always about like I've learned something huge.
Right.
But the question is, does it make me think of something that I haven't thought about? And then I always ask myself the question, what am I going to do with this? Because if I don't do anything with it, it doesn't really. I don't want to just hoard knowledge.
Right.
It needs to actually pour itself out into something else.
Right. So listen, man. So if you had one thing, to leave to the listeners, inspire, entrepreneurs, business owners, what would it be?
One thing. It really just is about that make sure that you understand that there's always going to be tension in your life. Tension is not bad.
Okay.
Your mindset about that tension
Yeah.
is what's important.
Is what's important.
I mean, you as a trainer understands that tension is actually what makes you stronger.
Makes you yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing. You're going to get pulled in 80 different directions.
Right.
Make sure that you're saying yes to the right thing at the right time.
Okay.
And that's the tension that you've got to balance as an
Right.
entrepreneur.
Right.
Is that you can't pursue every great idea. You can't pursue everything you want to do at one time.
Right.
Sometimes you say no to good ideas and good things so that you can say yes to great things. So.
I like that. Josh, man, I sure appreciate you coming through, man.
My pleasure.
You dropped some gems on us today, man, and I know it's gonna, impact a whole lot of people, brother.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you again, man. Appreciate you again. Everybody, thank y'all for tuning in to the episode of KaneSaid. And listen, man, y'all know my slogan, man. The grind. Apologize for that. The fame is free, but the grind costs, baby. So again, thank my man Josh Sells coming in, man. If you guys are ever in the Lagrange area, go check him out, man. Go check him out. Chick-fil-A, baby.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all. Zip them up.